My name is Emily, and I'm 27. For most of my life, I thought I was the lucky one, the only child with a mom who was young, ambitious, and supportive. I had no siblings until I was 6, and looking back, maybe I was happiest in those early years. My dad had been out of the picture since before I was born, but my mom filled both roles. We had routines that felt like our own secret little world: Saturday morning pancakes, movie nights on Fridays, and beach trips every summer. She was everything to me, and I thought I was everything to her. But then, when I was 6, my mother remarried and my sister Pam was born. That should have made our family feel complete, but as time went on, I started to feel more like a guest in my own home. My mother's attention shifted in ways I wasn't prepared for, and though I tried to keep up with the changes, it was clear that Pam was the star of her world. Pam was bright, bubbly, and seemed to effortlessly do all the right things that earned her my mom's constant praise. I felt like I was living in her shadow, and I'd often stand at family gatherings, watching as my mom proudly talked about Pam's latest achievements. I was there, too, working hard in school and doing everything I could to get noticed, but I was usually just a quiet observer in the background. I didn't hate Pam for it. In a way, she was just being a kid, and I could understand that she hadn't asked to be the favorite. But the favoritism was hard to ignore. My mom's marriage to my stepdad brought a new layer of family dynamics, and while my stepdad was kind enough, he didn't feel like a father to me. My mom's attention was fixed on Pam and my stepdad. I became a teenager who felt like a visitor in her own home. I kept myself busy with school and extracurriculars, trying not to dwell on the fact that I wasn't her focus anymore. But I couldn't shake the longing for the mom who used to make me feel special, the one who used to listen to my dreams and plans with genuine interest. I learned to be self-reliant, to hold back my emotions, and keep to myself. I wanted to prove that I didn't need anyone's approval, even though, deep down, I wanted it more than anything. When I moved out for college, I started to feel like my life was truly my own. I had my own space, my own schedule, and for the first time, I felt free. College was hard work, but I loved every second of it. I met new people, discovered new interests, and began to shape my identity in ways that I couldn't have done back home. And somewhere along the way, I met Josh. Josh was everything I needed in a partner: supportive, grounded, and endlessly patient. We met during a sociology class in my junior year, and it didn't take long before I knew he was different. He respected my independence, valued my opinions, and loved me in a way that made me feel seen, something I hadn't felt in a long time. Josh quickly became my best friend and my rock, and we talked often about our dreams for the future, including the family we wanted to build together. A few years after graduation, Josh proposed. It wasn't some grand, over-the-top gesture. It was simple, intimate, and just right. He asked me to marry him at our favorite beach, the one we used to go to on weekends to escape the chaos of city life. The answer was easy: yes. As we began planning the wedding, I thought of all the people who had been there for me throughout my life, who had watched me grow into the person I was. My heart ached a little, thinking of my mom and Pam, wondering if they would want to celebrate this milestone with me. My mom and I hadn't been close for years, but a part of me held out hope that maybe, just maybe, she'd feel proud to be by my side on this important day. When I called my mom to tell her the news, her response wasn't what I expected. She congratulated me politely, but didn't show much excitement. She mentioned Pam's recent divorce, which was just beginning, and implied that it might be hard for Pam to attend the wedding while going through such a difficult time. I tried to be understanding, but I couldn't help feeling hurt. This was my wedding, after all, and I thought that my happiness might come first for once. As the wedding planning continued, my mom's calls became less frequent, and when we did talk, they felt distant. I started to hear rumblings from other family members that Pam was spreading rumors, telling everyone that it was inconsiderate of me to get married while she was divorcing. According to her, I was trying to rub my happiness in her face, as if my engagement had anything to do with her at all. Then, one afternoon, my mom called with a shocking request. She wanted me to postpone the wedding. She explained that Pam was struggling emotionally and that it would be too painful for her to see me get married at this time. My mind was reeling. Here I was, excitedly planning the happiest day of my life, and my own mother was asking me to put it on hold for the sake of my sister's feelings. It felt like a betrayal, like all the years of putting Pam first were building to this climax where I was expected to sacrifice my happiness entirely. I told her no. Calmly but firmly, I explained that this was my day, and I wasn't willing to give it up because Pam was going through a tough time. I had waited for years to find someone who made me feel truly loved, and I wasn't going to let my sister's jealousy or my mother's bias take that away from me. That was when the real sabotage began. Pam, upset that I had refused to delay the wedding, started a campaign to turn our family against me. She reached out to aunts, uncles, and cousins, telling them that I was selfish, that I didn't care about her pain, and that I was flaunting my happiness in her face. The lies were relentless, and soon people began calling me to ask why I was being so inconsiderate to my sister. Some of them started to back out of attending, and before long, I realized that my guest list was shrinking. Pam went even further, spreading rumors that I had somehow been involved in her breakup. She told people that I had encouraged her husband to leave her, that I had made him see the value of a child-free life. A ridiculous claim considering I had barely spoken to him. But she was so convincing, so manipulative in her delivery, that people began to believe her. By the time my wedding day arrived, most of my family had chosen Pam's side. Only a few relatives from my side attended, along with my friends and Josh's family. I felt the absence of my family deeply, but I knew I couldn't let it ruin my day. Josh was incredible through it all, reassuring me that we were building our own family, one filled with people who truly loved and supported us. After the wedding, I decided to cut Pam and my parents out of my life entirely. The betrayal was too much, and I needed to protect myself from further heartache. Josh and I focused on our future together, working hard in our respective careers and talking about the family we wanted to have one day. Life finally felt calm and stable, and I was beginning to heal from the wounds that my family had left. Then, 3 years later, we got the news we'd been waiting for. I was pregnant. Josh and I were overjoyed, and we couldn't wait to share the news. We posted a simple announcement on social media, a picture of us holding an ultrasound image with beaming smiles. It was a moment we wanted to remember forever, a symbol of the happiness we had built together despite everything. Within hours of the announcement, I received a call from my mother. After 3 years of silence, there she was, acting as if nothing had happened, asking how I'd been and congratulating me on the pregnancy. I could tell there was more to it, and sure enough, the conversation quickly turned to Pam. My mother explained that Pam had been struggling with infertility, going through failed IVF treatments and feeling heartbroken that she couldn't have a child of her own. She suggested that perhaps my pregnancy could be an opportunity for Pam to feel the joy of motherhood by sharing in my child's life. The suggestion was absurd. My mother went as far as to imply that Pam could be like a second mother to my baby, saying it would give her the fulfillment she had been missing. The whole thing felt like an attempt to turn my child into some sort of consolation prize for Pam's inability to conceive. I felt a strange sense of satisfaction as I hung up the phone, realizing that I had finally stood up for myself. My mother and Pam had crossed so many lines in my life. This time, I wasn't going to let them. I had tried to be the daughter they expected, to be the sister they could at least tolerate, but nothing I did was ever enough. Now, I was done bending to their whims. I had my own family to care about, my own child on the way, and the life I was building with my husband. Days passed, and the calls from my parents didn't stop. Even distant relatives started reaching out, either trying to convince me to consider Pam's feelings or to smooth things over with my parents. It was clear that they hadn't grasped my boundaries. They still expected me to put everyone else's needs ahead of my own. A part of me was hurt, but mostly I felt frustrated. Didn't they understand that they were asking me to sacrifice my own happiness? Then came the letters, emails, and messages, one after another, each one guiltier and more desperate than the last. My mother's words struck me the hardest. Asterisk, how could you be so selfish, Emily? I raised you on my own, sacrificed so much for you, and this is how you repay me? Pam is your sister. She needs you now more than ever. Asterisk. My anger surged as I read those lines. Sacrificed? Had she forgotten that she'd practically kicked me out of her life the moment Pam demanded her attention, manipulating family members and turning them against me? I wasn't a fool. I knew their sudden interest in my pregnancy had little to do with love and everything to do with Pam's desire to have a child, any child. I could only imagine how my baby would be treated as a substitute or worse, used to fill Pam's unmet needs. After days of silence, I finally called my mother back. "Mom," I said, voice steady. "I don't owe you or Pam anything. I'm not here to make up for her loss. I have my own family to care for now, and I will not put myself or my child in a position where they're treated like a tool for Pam's happiness." My mother fell silent on the line, only for a moment, before she responded coldly. "I thought you'd be better than this, Emily. I thought you'd at least try to understand." "Understand what?" I replied, exasperation seeping into my voice. That Pam's feelings are the only thing that matter? That I should let her be mother to my child because she's sad? That's not my problem, Mom. I won't let my child be caught up in this twisted family dynamic. I knew there would be fallout. And sure enough, it wasn't long before my mother and Pam began spreading stories again. The rumors that had once tainted my wedding day now returned, this time about how I was cold-hearted, selfish, and ruthless. They told relatives that I was refusing to let Pam be a part of my child's life out of spite, not mentioning, of course, that they wanted her to play a maternal role in my baby's life. It hurt to be painted as the villain once again, but I was stronger this time. My husband, my in-laws, and my close friends knew the truth, and that's all I needed. As the months went on, I focused on preparing for my baby's arrival. I poured my energy into making a nursery, planning for the future, and cherishing the peace I felt when I was with my husband. He was my rock through all of this, reminding me that family wasn't defined by blood, but by loyalty, love, and support. He listened to my worries, reassured me when I felt doubtful, and showed me that our life together was more important than the drama I'd left behind. Then, one day, my husband and I ran into Pam's ex-husband while out for lunch. I hadn't seen him since before their divorce, and seeing him again stirred up all the memories of that chaotic time before our wedding. I never imagined that he'd approach us, let alone offer us his congratulations. "I'm sorry I couldn't make it to your wedding," he said, sincerity in his eyes. I know it was a tough time, but if I'd known everything Pam was doing, I would have been there. Curious, I asked what he meant by everything Pam was doing, and that's when the truth came pouring out. He explained that Pam had kept postponing mediation sessions for the divorce, claiming she was too overwhelmed with my wedding planning to attend. She'd even fabricated excuses, acting as though she was devastated by my upcoming marriage. But the real reason for their split was far darker than anyone had guessed. Pam told me she'd secretly stopped taking her birth control without telling me, he said, his voice shaking slightly. She thought that if she got pregnant, I'd have to deal with it and change my mind about kids. When I found out, I just couldn't trust her anymore. The anger I'd felt toward her transformed into something deeper, a realization of just how far she was willing to go to get what she wanted. She had lied to everyone, manipulated our family, and still had the audacity to claim she deserved to be a mother. The thought of her around my child, using my baby as an emotional crutch, turned my stomach. I couldn't let that happen. After that conversation, I decided once and for all to cut ties with her and my parents. My focus was on the life my husband and I were creating together. They'd already missed my wedding, they would miss my child's birth, and they'd miss every precious moment in between. I wasn't going to allow them back, and weeks went by, and as my due date approached, I felt a sense of peace and closure that I hadn't felt in years. My past was firmly behind me, and I was free to move forward without the weight of their expectations and manipulations dragging me down. When my baby was finally born, I felt an overwhelming wave of love and gratitude. My heart was so full, knowing that I had everything I needed right there with my husband and our new little family. For the first time, I felt truly free to be the mother I wanted to be, the mother who would love unconditionally without strings attached or hidden motives. As I held my child in my arms, I knew that my parents and Pam were no longer a part of my story. My family was here, in my arms and by my side. And with that, I was finally able to let go of the hurt and walk forward into my new life, stronger than ever.